let's check in here with Rachel Duensing. Rachel, where are you? And my gosh, what's going on there?
Yeah, Rob. So we are at the causeway, the part of the causeway where you're just now starting to get onto the islands themselves. And this is the exit ramp behind me. I'm actually going to step out of view so that hopefully you can see things. We just have torrential waves crashing onshore. We've been seeing this sort of debris push more and more into the lanes just in the 15 minutes that we've been here. So this is not only the evidence of the high tide, the just awful waves, but it does appear that we are starting to see some surge issues as well. Now, of course, this part of the islands are really low lying, so this area is vulnerable to surge. But Scott, if you want to flip around to the roof camera, you can actually see more evidence of surge in this back parking lot here. So again, if you've been on the Sanibel Causeway, the Sanibel Islands, you know that there are these little parking lots, these little beach areas, just all along the islands here, and they are inundated with water right now. So if you are going to be traveling either on or especially off of the Sanibel Islands, you want to make sure that you are using extreme caution because we are seeing evidence of surge pushing some debris on the roadways, especially as you are going off of the island. So we are going to continue to stay here for as long as it is safe because, again, we are starting to see some evidence of surge. The waves are really starting to get close to us here on the side of the roadway. But count on NBC2. You've got your team of meteorologists working for you all day long to let you know if surge is impacting your neighborhood and, of course, that tornado threat as well. So I am live on the Sanibel Causeway. Rachel Duensing, NBC2. All right, I'm NBC2 meteorologist Rachel Duensing live on the Sanibel Causeway. Apologies, it's a little hard to hear my producer because clearly you can see there's quite a squall coming through here. Again, I'm live on the Sanibel Causeway where we are seeing some evidence of not only that higher than normal tide as the waves crash on shore, but also what looks like the beginning of some storm surge. We showed you before we went to break, the Lee County Sheriff's officers are out here and they are blocking off, or at least trying their best to direct traffic, make sure people are aware that there is some surge, there is some flooding on the roadways. But something else that we're seeing, again, that surge, there's a parking lot just to the other side of me, and it doesn't look like a parking lot right now. It looks like one of the beaches as the waves just really crash on shore. I mean, these waves are significant. We are seeing people slow to a crawl just because they have to navigate around debris that the storm surge brought onto the roadways here in the Sanibel Causeways. We actually moved our first alert storm tracker from that side of the road to the other side of the road for safety reasons because we did not want to be stuck in some of that surge. But we will continue being here throughout the rest of the morning, keeping tabs on the surge here on the Sanibel Causeways and the squall that is currently going through right now. Live on Sanibel, Rachel Duensing, NBC2.
If you notice that blue thumbtack on the board there, that represents, based on GPS positioning, the current location of meteorologist Rachel Duensing, who is inside our first alert storm tracker. I believe we can take her live shot live here. Rachel, you've had some storm surge flooding, it appears, on parts of the causeway. What do conditions look like right now on the ground there?
Rob, they aren't great. I'm just going to be honest with you. We are continuing to see those waves really just push onshore, and we're getting some pretty significant gusts every now and then. A few minutes ago, before you came to the shot, I was actually struggling to stand up. Obviously, I'm a short person, so I don't have a lot of surface area to block the winds, but we are seeing some pretty strong gusts, and those strong winds really continue to bring in the storm surge as it pushes onshore. We continue to see Lee County deputies out here really just making sure people are aware of the flooding that's on the road, some debris that's on the road. People are taking it pretty slow as they cross over the causeway, still seeing traffic come on and off. But yeah, the conditions are not all that great out here. If you do have to be outside, make sure that you find sturdy shelter. But as Jason and Rob and everyone have been telling you really throughout the morning, it's not a great one to be outside. If you can stay inside, I would recommend doing so until the impacts of Eta continue to move away from us. So we will continue staying here on Sanibel, tracking the storm surge, tracking the gusty conditions here on the Sanibel Causeway. Live on Sanibel Causeway, Rachel Duensing, NBC2.
We want to check back in with First Alert meteorologist Rachel Duensing. Rachel, it's been intense for a while now. Is there any difference from the last time that we checked in, or is it pretty constant at this point?
I mean, honestly, the winds have calmed down very slightly. A few minutes ago, when we were actually in the first alert storm tracker, the winds were just whipping the track around, shaking things quite a bit. So when Jason was talking about that wind gust up to around 50 miles an hour at the Sanibel Yacht Club, we felt that here for sure. So winds are calming down a bit. It's still rough, and yes, they are clearing debris out of the roadway. But I want you to look in the Gulf of Mexico right now. It doesn't look like the Gulf of Mexico. This almost looks like what I was seeing with Eta on Monday in the Keys from the Atlantic side. So we continue to see some rough weather, some really high waves, which continue to bring in the storm surge and all of the issues here. Now, Jason and Rob had mentioned it. We are now starting to go into low tide, so hopefully within the next few hours we see a lot of this recede, but the waves are still going to be high, and that's going to cause issues as we go through the day. And then we get into high tide tonight, and that's going to cause even more issues. So I will be here through the rest of the day, here live on the Sanibel Causeway. Rachel Duensing, NBC2. Yeah, the water is very high. And one thing that we noticed when we crossed over the causeway this morning before 10 o'clock, we noticed we could still see the docks here. I'm going to go ahead and put my hood up and step outside so I can point some things out to you a little more easily. But when we got back here, when we decided to leave Sanibel and to, because they were closing the causeway, we drove back over here. One of the first things we noticed was these docks were covered in water. You'll notice there's a sign there that says no fishing from docks. Well, you can't even really get to the docks right now anyway. And there's a road ahead that a lot of people have been finding themselves, stuck under some water. So see, this car here is actually trying to back up a little bit because we drove up, we parked, that road did not have water in it. Within a matter of minutes, the water came rushing onto the road, and a lot of people, like the car that you just saw, ended up deciding to say, hey, I'm not even going to mess with it, I'm going to back up. Some have been trying to move through it. And we're just continuing to see, while the waves are not as high on this side, the water is high, and now we have another squall that is starting to come in as well. So the weather continues to be the gift that keeps on giving, I guess, if that's a bad way of saying it. But the weather is not great here in Punta Rasa or really anywhere across the coast of Southwest Florida. So now that the squall is getting pretty treacherous, I'm going to head back into the first alert storm tracker. So live in Punta Rasa, Rachel Duensing, NBC2.